Quebec election, which, let's face it, is always fun to watch, is upcoming. Fun from the standpoint that it just gets sometimes gets tongues wagging and blood boiling. Beryl Wiseman joins us now, and I understand, Beryl, welcome to the show, that freedom of religion will play mightily in this election.
A lot of things will play mightily in this election, Jerry. Most of all, how long can a government continue to fight elections and marginalize people, all minorities, and it's not just about religion, it's about language, it's about basic civic rights as Canadians, without anybody saying anything. This is an election probably the most important in a generation because it's about marginalizing Canadians in their home province, and these same Canadians feeling a sense of total disenfranchisement as Canadians because Ottawa says nothing. And that's the bottom line question.
Well, there is probably an unease, not just in Quebec, but across the country. Sometimes countries change as immigrants come in, about how maybe the culture is changing, etc. But it seems to boil at a different level in Quebec, perhaps, than it does elsewhere in the country.
No, not at all.
No?
Understand this, and I hope after all the talk that Canadians understand this, whether they're of the right or of the left. The nationalists in Quebec and the PQ government are not racist, they're not xenophobes, they're opportunists, and they're using the question of language or religion to divide urban areas from rural areas. It's not a new tactic, it's just a venal tactic. But at some point in this whole debate, it's not a matter of new immigrants coming in and how areas of the country react to it. It's a matter of the slow undoing of fundamental Canadian rights. And I'm very proud of the Prime Minister's foreign policy. It's very nice that he went, that John Baird is in Kiev. But let somebody from Ottawa come to Montreal and talk about the basic rights of Canadians. This is past any kind of normal debate. This has gone into Alice in Wonderland.
But how is it going to play in that regard with the average person in Quebec, and will it be different in the urban areas than the rural areas?
Yes, it will, and unfortunately from what I'm seeing right now, because no political party, neither the Parti Québécois nor the Liberals, despite promises over the past 20 years of equalizing the population bases of urban and rural ridings, but once everybody gets a majority, nobody wants to touch it, the rural vote has twice the clout of the urban vote. The average population in rural ridings almost half that of urban ridings. And frankly, Marois' Hail Mary pass of Bill 60, and that's what it was. It was Hail Mary. She had retreated on the students. She had retreated on taxes. They found a $2 billion hole in the budget they didn't know existed. She'd retreated on Bill 14. This was Hail Mary. This was, look, Quebec, look what's going to happen to you from these étrangères. This was the politics of la peur, as Jean-Charles Harvey wrote in 1939, and it's working. But I must tell you one thing. It's working not because she did it, it's working because, and I've spoken to so many cultural communities here, it's working because the reaction to it by those who oppose it was wrong and extreme. You don't reject the concept of laity in society. There's a 200-year tradition in Western democracies of laity in legislatures, in security authorities, in courts, and even in public schools. Now, what she put in the bill was so broad as to be ridiculous. But the approach should have been, we don't need this conversation. This certainly isn't our biggest problem. We understand where it's appropriate, and we understand why she did the rest. Instead, you had massive rejectionists. You had crazy kinds of demonstrations. And that played into the regional fears of strangeness happening in the urban areas.
Beryl, I have about a minute here, but as I try to read up on what might take place during this election, I see the word sovereignty coming up again.
It absolutely will. And if from today, and I hope I'm wrong, but from today I see the PQ getting a supermajority, which means over 63 seats as a possibility, and I'm certain that they will go into a referendum. And please don't forget that a year and a half ago, Marois threw out the idea of giving 16-year-olds the vote for the purposes of the referendum. And that's a pretty frightening prospect. And with Ottawa being totally silent and impotent on this, building a bridge over Quebec, if you like, as Diefenbaker had, it's not a great future for any Quebecers, economically or any other way.
Beryl, always good to have you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jerry.